Abortion rights are top of mind for Wisconsin State Supreme Court justices. Plus, the future of the state's top election official could depend on the High Court's ruling. CBS 58's Emilee Fannon, WisPolitics Editor JR Ross break it down for us in tonight's Capital Connection.
The election has been over for more than a week now, but there is a looming question about whether election officials should be bracing for a recount. It comes after Republican U.S. Senate candidate Eric Hovde has still yet to concede in his defeat to Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin. Hovde broke his silence in a social media post this week where he did all but to concede. Meanwhile, he spread a lot of false or misleading claims about his election loss. But let's go back to, at first, the timeline here, JR, because time is running out starting next week, whether Hovde will call a recount or not.
So once you have the election, county boards of canvass convene, finalize everything, make sure no mistakes, submit those to the Elections Commission. Once the final canvass comes in, there are 3 business days to request a recount. Then we go through that process. Now for Hovde, one key thing is the margin stay where it is. If you are at 1% or less, you can ask for a recount as a loser. It must be 0.25% or less to have the taxpayers pay for it. Right now it's 0.9%. So he could ask for one if the results hold up, but have to pay for it. And that would be millions of dollars, unless you do like a couple of counties kind of thing, which is what Trump did in 2020. But there's a tight timeline next week and get that going. The question is, would it change anything? Most likely not.
Right, and it's also a big question about what his speculations about some of these election claims, which have been debunked by top election officials, what this could mean for his reputation going forward. I heard a lot from GOP operatives that were basically blindsided because many thought when he was going to post this video on Tuesday, he was going to admit, I lost, it's time to move on, but he didn't.
So look, as you've heard as well, people are tossing out his name for 2026 for governor. In 2022, he passed on a run for governor. He told me at the time that his issues were really more in the federal realm, not really state issues. So I'm not sure he's that interested in it. But number 2, the longer you drag this out, the more it damages your reputation. People kind of go, okay, what's going on? It's a sore loser kind of thing. Now, Donald Trump never conceded to Joe Biden, raised falsely about the election for 4 solid years, didn't bother him at all. He's unique when it comes to politicians. What we're watching with Hovde is like, at what point do you throw in the towel? How do you handle it? And does it hurt or help your reputation going forward in politics?
Last thing I want to bring up on this topic is just kind of a little bit of an explainer of some of the claims Hovde made, because some of them are repeated almost every 4 years or every 2 years in really, consequential elections. The one had to do with quote unquote ballot dumps that come in very, very late because, we have central count cities like Milwaukee, Green Bay, Racine that take them much longer to count tens of thousands of absentee ballots. So the results are not coming in, like Milwaukee's sake, 4 a.m. Hovde claimed around 1 a.m. it appeared that the module showed that he was going to win. Well, at that time at 1 a.m. it did, but there were still many ballots that still need to be counted. He also claimed there was more than 150%, 250% of people voting at certain precincts. Well, it turns out that actually happens because there's same-day voter registration in Wisconsin, so those numbers do appear much larger.
Look, I've never had millions of bucks dumped on my head, call me a bad person, to have to accept a loss after that, but for some candidates, it's just hard to accept that they lost. Now, miracles do happen. There could be something crazy we don't expect out of the canvas or that could really change this result, but nobody I've talked to in the last week and a half has said Hovde has a path to victory in Wisconsin.
All right, let's move on to oral arguments this week in the state Supreme Court, which reproductive rights were front and center, which is the big argument over the 1849 near total abortion ban that is being challenged in a lawsuit. What the court will ultimately decide is whether or not that 19th century law is enforceable in modern times.
So, a couple of these look going forward. Supreme Court race in the spring. Do we have a decision in this case ahead of that? Does that become an issue again in 2025, like in 2023? 2, there's a second case before the court right now. It has not set oral arguments or a briefing schedule that argues there's a right to bodily autonomy in Wisconsin under the Constitution. That would then guarantee a right to an abortion in Wisconsin, much like Roe v. Wade did at the federal level back in '73. When will that case come up? Could that play out as a backdrop of the Supreme Court race in the spring as well, or would that be down the line? So once you have that second case decided, then you might see challenges about the 20-week abortion ban in Wisconsin or other restrictions that aren't at play in the current case.
And looking ahead to next week, another high-profile case will be before the court on Monday, which deals with the fate of the state's top election official. That's Megan Wolf, who serves as the administrator at WEC. Now, this is the longstanding argument that Republicans, she fired her, and meanwhile, Wolf and Democrats believe they had no authority to do that, but she never really left her role. So that is really basically what's going to be discussed, if whether she's lawfully holding her position or not.
So my dorktum here goes to the legal stuff as well. If you go back to the Supreme Court when it had a conservative majority, talked about carryover appointments, basically people who exceed the term of their appointment. The then conservative majority said those are allowed. This is kind of a parallel situation. Well, the now liberal majority say, yeah, it's still kosher in this situation.
And that will do it for this week. Thanks so much for joining us.